Today's question comes from James in California. He says, Dave, out of curiosity, specifically, how did you make your first million after your bankruptcy? It's a good I don't even know the story.
I'm not sure I do.
Take us back
I'll
there,
have to
Dave.
think about it.
So this was back in 88?
So I filed bankruptcy in September of 88, and what I did after that was I went back to doing real estate deals, only I couldn't buy real estate anymore because I had no credit and no money.
So no one would lend you money.
What I would do is tie up a deal and then sell the contract to another investor that used to be a competitor of mine, but we're friends. And so I did, what you might call a dry flip. In other words, I would sell the contract positions. So I go contract for a house that's worth $200,000. I would contract for it for $110 and sell it to a buddy of mine for $10,000, and he could close on it. He'd have $120 in it, right? It's still $200,000 house. So I was still doing foreclosure deals. I got back to doing six figures in 89 again. I was back making over $100,000 a year doing that. But I had a bunch of IRS debt to clean up because that doesn't bankrupt, and a few other things to clean up. And it took about a year and a half, 2 years to clean that up. So I'm trying to think. I kept doing that. I'm trying to think if I got my net worth to $1 million again before we started doing Financial Peace. I might not have.
So had you started this business,
actually
group?
starting this business slowed that down because I made less. The first year I did Financial Peace. It was called Life After Debt, and I was doing the radio show. The radio show was losing money.
So you were paying to do the radio show.
My taxable income was in half. I made $120,000 a year before. I made $60,000 a year after.
Wow.
First year I opened this business, my income went in half. So that slowed it down. So it would have been a couple of years after I got this going. We're starting to get a little bit of income out of this. Income came back up over time, of course.
Because you started selling the original Financial Peace book, and you were doing seminars and, the 13, 15-week, however long it was,
yeah, but
classes.
Sharon and I lived on nothing. Even though we were out of debt by then, I mean, we'd paid off the bankruptcy, we'd paid off the everything. We were completely clear, but we were just done. And so we just lived on nothing and just piled up money. And because we both wanted the security of that margin. And so how did I make my first million? So income and thrift is how I did it.
So it was not in the stock market at that point?
No. I mean, we had our 401k, not 401k. We had Roth IRAs. They weren't even Roth IRAs in those days.
Just IRAs?
I had IRAs in those days going, kids' college funds going. And I'm just chunking money and stuff like that in that. Didn't even have any real estate except our own. Got the house paid off. So yeah, I was probably 3 or 4 years into this business before I hit another net worth.
But it was mostly earned income from just.
It was mostly earned income and not
grit.
spending any of it.
Yeah.
None of it. I mean, we didn't do anything. We're still driving junk cars. We were still way past what we teach people to do. We teach you once you get to baby steps 3, 4, 5, 6, or 4, 5, 6 that you can lighten up and save up and buy a car, and lighten up, save up and go on vacation. We didn't. We just piled up.
At what point were the baby steps developed to where you were following them? Post bankruptcy.
Oh, I didn't follow them post bankruptcy because I hadn't invented them. I mean, I hadn't laid all that out. When I started learning after the bankruptcy, God's ways of handling money, what the Bible says, and Grandma's ways, these basic principles: live on less than you make, always be generous, live on a written plan, always be saving and investing, and no debt at all. And those basic 5 principles, when I started living those out, and then I started trying to get other people to live them out, they would start to say, okay, yeah, but where do I start?
They needed a clear path.
I started a little counseling ministry at our church, and I started teaching a Sunday school class on those materials, and people would say, okay, so what do you do first, man? I mean, do you get out of debt first, or do you put money in your retirement first? And but by then I was sure that the bigger blocker, because I'd experienced it personally, was debt. That if you could get out of debt, then you don't have any payments. Now you got money to build net worth, which is what happened to me.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, I got out of debt, and with a bankruptcy, and then paying off the IRS and the other stuff. And then once all that was cleared, as long as I made money and didn't spend it, I could build net worth. I could build a pile of money, and that's what I did. And so I thought, okay, we got to get people out of debt first. But the paying off the house was too big a thing. to put in the early stages, because first thing's $1,000, right? And then pay off the house is the second thing. So we separated the house debt from the other debt and put it at the end, over in baby step 6. And we knew that you didn't need to start investing in your 401k until you had an emergency fund, because I was running into people all the time that had no money except in their retirement, and then they'd get in a pinch and cash out their retirement. And let me tell you, a 401k is a lousy emergency fund, because when you cash it out, you get your taxes plus a 10% hit. You know, it's a 30 or 40% hit cashing out your 401k to fix your transmission or to pay the house payment because you got laid off. And, you know, whatever the emergency is, a 401k is a lousy rainy day fund. So funding up the 401k, but I get a match. I know, but you're broke. I don't care if you get a match. You're freaking broke, and you're going to use the 401k when something bad happens because you got no money. So baby step 3 is invented. Actually, baby step 1 wasn't there.
You were just going, get out of debt, get out of debt.
It was get out of debt, do the emergency fund, and what would happen is, as people were working that baby step 2, something would come along that was little, like a tire would blow out or something, or a kid would get sick, and it's a $600, $700 thing or something, and that little $600 or $700 thing would take all the wind out of their sails, and they'd quit. They would stop their debt snowball. So we figured out that if we gave them a little bit of breathing room, a starter emergency fund, and baby step 1 was born. But the original baby steps, when I first started teaching them, there wasn't $1,000.
So this evolved over your experience coaching people, being on the radio?
Well, not in 25 years, but I mean, but it evolved over a period of time. In the early days of massaging this material and learning how to do it, it evolved. But no, I didn't follow the baby steps. They weren't there. All I knew was I'd read the Bible, and it said don't borrow money, and I'd been bankrupt, so I figured out that was the truth, right? So I don't borrow money anymore. Boom, I'm done, you know? And I'll always have an emergency fund. Why? Because Sharon will leave if I don't have one. You know, it's that simple. She's not going to be without money again. She's had enough of that.
Nope.
She was terrorized by that.
Yeah, she's not going back.
So you get the whole security gland issue around the emergency fund. That all pops up. That's such an interesting question, James. Thank you, in California. Thank you.
Made Dave
because I hadn't even thought about it. I never thought about where the first million came from. And then you know, fast forward several years, I had a lot of money by then, and 2008 hit, and we bought. Oh man, we bought probably $100 million worth of real estate for $15 million.
Wow.
And so, and you know, and it all came back, of course, and then some. So that real estate has been
a big part of the wealth building equation.
Well, like the way beyond the first million or even 10 million, you know. By then I had net worth $10-20 million probably, but I dumped we cleaned the table off. We took the chips off the table when the real estate dove in 2008, and you could buy it for 15 cents on the dollar. And I still got all of that. I never sold any of it. So,
pretty incredible.
That was a home run.
But the first million's the hardest.
Yeah, by far.
Wow.
By far.
And these principles, once you got these baby steps dialed in, and over time you went, oh, it works.
But you know what? From a baby steps, I did not even follow the baby steps millionaires thing.
Path.
Because we were more intense than the baby steps in terms of we didn't do nothing until we got back up there. And the other thing I didn't do is I did get the house paid off because I don't borrow money. But the 401k hadn't had time to germinate. The Roth IRAs didn't have time to germinate and grow and compound. And so they weren't that big a part of it. It was just literally make income, spend nothing. Make income, spend nothing until you get the pain far enough in the rearview mirror. And then we could move forward. But that was a whole lot more intense and raw than I ask other people to do to get there. Baby Steps Millionaire is more the formula to get there. So,
well, thanks for taking us back.
Very interesting. Thank you, James. That's good stuff. This is The Ramsey Show.